Welcome to Wonderful Wednesday. I'm here with Don Mowry, our UUC member, who also is working on a very special project called the Roundtable Revival. And so, Don, I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about our 50-50 Share the Plate this month as well, which is Roundtable Revival.
Sure, I'd be happy to. We started Roundtable Revival because we were, and there's a group of us all working on separate little projects, and we decided if we came together and formed a nonprofit, we could perhaps advance the projects we were interested in and apply for grants and so on. But our vision is really to try to bring everybody to the table to create a more positive, supportive, both reentry and recovery solutions for people who have had a time in jail or prison, people getting out of incarceration.
And is that a project that is up and running, or is it evolving, or where does that stand right now?
It's up and running. We actually were set to start a mentoring program last fall. It was going to be a face-to-face, in-person, 13-week program, which would be meeting weekly with probably about a 3-hour session with a community meal, and then some roundtable discussion or circle discussion, talking about our stories, our narrative, and our goals, and then a speaker who would come in and talk about things like how to find an apartment, an affordable apartment or something, and then mentor time, one-on-one or maybe two-on-one. We really are committed to having peer specialists be involved in all phases of our operation, from the board to trying to expand opportunities for people who have pursued becoming certified peer specialists, either through Roundtable or in other settings, such as the treatment courts or the criminal justice system or the jail. Let's see, where was I going with this? I kind of have lost track. And anyway, COVID-19 came along and just threw a monkey wrench into everything. And now we're kind of regrouping, and we're hoping that we can again have this face-to-face kind of contact soon. But in the meantime, I think we're pursuing the idea of having virtual mentoring and coaching, and the grant would enable us to maybe to start the mentoring program virtually, and then as we are able to then implement more and more face-to-face contact as people get vaccinated for COVID-19, we'll do that. But we're also a couple other programs we hope to start. One would be a first stop program where people could go after they get discharged from the jail. And sometimes this is as early as 5:30 in the morning when nothing's open. Even if they wanted to go to Western Dairyland and check into housing or employment, it wouldn't be open. And we have a space, at least, there was a space, I don't know if it's still there, at Grace Lutheran Church, which is close to the jail. And that would be staffed by certified peer specialists who are resource savvy and not only know the ins and outs of the resources that exist officially on paper, but might be able to find, have through their own experience, that this resource is much more friendly to people who have been incarcerated than this other one or something like that. So they would have that kind of knowledge. And then finally, another program we've thought of, and we're getting close to offering until our space that was donated to us at the State Regional Arts Center fell through, was the foyer, which we took the name from the foyer at the state because that's where it was going to be. But that would be a sober bar or an alcohol-free bar, or a place where people could go and socialize and have the kind of opportunity that you have typically in a Wisconsin tavern, but without the presence of alcohol. And that would be open to everyone as long as they came in sober and stayed sober during their tenure there. So just an opportunity to get together with friends and play games and have fun and have music and play darts, whatever people are interested in, play pool.
So it sounds like you have a tiered program that's happening. So the idea for the sober bar is still in process, but these other ones
Mhm.
are really coming along then.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we'd be willing to start any of them first. We're still working on doing a little bit of fundraising so that we can afford the insurance that it'll take to be able to have the Roundtable Revival sponsor the certified peer specialist so they could work in these settings and get reimbursed, say through a contract with community, CCS at the county, which they can hire a certified peer specialist and pay them an hourly wage. And if we have a contract with CCS, um, we can actually, charge a little bit of overhead to help the agency meet some of its costs. We're
And
not going to have, I
yes.
don't see us having a storefront in the near future,
And what is
but it wouldn't,
CCS?
pardon?
What is
Uh,
CCS?
I knew you were going to ask me that. The Eau Claire County, several years ago, the state changed the kind of the policies and allowed counties to bring back in-house some of the services that they were contracting for with mostly private nonprofit agencies. So they have hired counselors and they have someone who does jail reentry, and they can bill medical assistance for those who qualify for medical assistance.
Okay. Okay.
So it really helps to, I think, reduce costs. Plus, it increases coordination between, someone that might be a CCS client, but also is in jail or has gotten out of jail, and so there can be a lot of collaboration that way too.
So this program is to meet needs that are not currently being met, right, when people come out of jail.
Right. There really isn't a comprehensive reentry program for people coming out of jail or prison as it exists in Eau Claire County. There are pieces here and there and some excellent resources in terms of employment. Housing is always an issue. I just remember what CCS is. It's Comprehensive Community Services. Just
Okay.
get that in there. But there's a real lack of coordinated and collaborative program to address all the needs that someone might have if they're coming out of jail or prison. Because even a short period of prison might result in loss of job, loss of housing, loss of support system, interruption in health and mental health coverage. So it can be very disruptive. And it's a big challenge to put that all back together once someone is released.
And are you looking for volunteers, or are there ways in which volunteers can approach this program yet or not yet?
Yes, we will be looking for volunteers, especially for the mentoring program. We want the foundation of the mentoring to be from people who have life experience or lived experience with the criminal justice system, but we'd also like to incorporate citizens from the community. For a couple of reasons. One, I think they'd be very helpful and supportive. But two, I think that a lot of us, having not had a lot of experience with someone who has been in jail or prison, carry along maybe some fears and some stereotypes and
Yeah.
Prejudices, and I think it would help to lower those barriers as well as to try to work towards a community that is accepting of others and people who are different and people who need help. So I think it would have a big impact on the volunteers as well.
Any other reasons why this became a passion for you, or why you particularly feel revved up about this idea?
Well, as I'm a retired social work professor, and I have done some work with this population. When I was in Madison working on my PhD, I took a job at an agency that provided, it was a program for men who batter, program to prevent women abuse. And they worked with women, they worked with men, and then they would, once the men had gone through a certain level of treatment, they could, if they were still working on their relationship with their wife, they could, go into couples kinds of counseling. So, and there was a lot of overlap. In fact, about 2/3 of the men who were in that program were court ordered. or required to go through the treatment. And I also went into the jail in Eau Claire and delivered a similar program based on just focused on anger control and anger management as a volunteer. But throughout my social work career, this is one area that always seemed to be an enigma to me. Why are we spending so much on corrections and putting so many people behind jail and not in an equitable fashion either? African Americans are adversely impacted by our laws and our policies. And I mean, people, talk about a, school to prison pipeline and criminal justice incarceration being the new Jim Crow. And there's a reason for that. It has not been fair. And it has been more of a kind of a return to a way of keeping a population controlled and disadvantaged and behind the rest of us. So it was something that I taught for many years and decided once I retired that I really wanted to get more active in trying to create solutions for it seemed like reentry was an obvious place to start.
Yeah, it seems like it's hard to believe that it exists the way it does. And
Mhm.
when I
Yeah.
was in Atlanta and was a homeless chaplain, that was a large part of our population was
Mhm.
people put out without IDs, without any
Yeah.
resources. And our job at the homeless chaplaincy was to try and get them birth certificates and their IDs
Mhm.
and housing.
Yeah.
And it was heartbreaking to see. And it's such a easy time to reoffend if you don't have the
Yeah.
basics. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really Jennifer Coyne told me that she was anxious for our program to start. She gave me the example. She had one client. I think she works at the Community Transition Center, but or maybe she's CCS too. I think she's CCS, but she had one client who just rode the bus all day because she didn't want to go home because she knew if she went home, she'd be kind of find herself back in an environment and around people that would get her to start using again. And
Right. Yeah.
um, she'd reoffended and ended up back in jail. So
Mm,
um, she didn't have any options, didn't have a support system.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for doing this work, and I
Mm-hmm.
hope that our 50/50 share the plate is at least a help and we can get the word out. So maybe there'll be volunteers. And
Mm-hmm.
all right, well, any other last words you wanted to share about the program or?
No, in fact, I would, if people are, you know, curious about it and the challenges of reentry, there was recently an article in a paper about Charles Woods.
Mhm.
Ryan Patterson is a Leader Telegram reporter, and it was really a good article. I was real surprised because I think we kind of think of newspapers today not really going in depth about any one topic, and this did a pretty good job of telling Charles's story and the challenges that are faced by someone getting out of reentry and why he's chosen to
Mhm.
um, reach out and help others. So and I forget the date it was on. It's just been within the last week, but it's an excellent article, and I would encourage them to seek that out.
All right, well, thank you,
And
and we'll look
you're
forward to
welcome.
hearing more.
Okay, thank you, Julie.